Hi, I'm Wyatt Cash, Vice President for Content Strategy at FedScoop, and we're here at the ACT-IAC Executive Leadership Conference in Williamsburg, and joining me is Tony Celeste. Tony is the Director for Brocade Federal. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we've been talking and hearing a lot about emerging technologies, how agencies can use them more effectively. You have an interesting perspective on that. Tell us some of the ways that you're seeing emerging technologies really taking hold at large enterprises.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, most radical transformations we're seeing in the industry today is something called the new IP. And the new IP is a transformation of the closed proprietary networks of yesterday to open software-defined networks. Mm-hmm. These networks will enable the network to be simplified and flattened. They'll allow for automation and intelligence in the environments, which are going to accelerate innovation and the adaptation of new technologies more rapidly.
Mm-hmm. So one of the stumbling blocks, the issues, the challenge, if you will, is agencies with legacy systems. So as much as I think they'd like to incorporate these new networks, these new sort of IP capabilities, they still have to work with what they have. How are you seeing them make the transition or layer these new technologies on top of what they have?
Sure. Well, I think one of the biggest misperceptions we see today is that the technology acquired that's utilizing these closed proprietary protocols will not use the open protocols. So many of these technologies, whether they be software or hardware-based technologies that have been acquired, had to comply with open standards at the time they were. So it's a matter of taking advantage of those open standards first and foremost to allow new, more innovative technologies and approaches to be taken full advantage of.
And where are you seeing some of this getting traction now in terms of some of your customers or some examples where you're seeing good successes?
Well, a big area where we've always seen success is in the RDT&E community. So
Sorry, that is
the research, development, test, and engineering environments.
Right.
So these are places like your NASA's, your Department of Energy labs, your National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So these research agencies have always interconnected with academia. They've always taken advantage of open standards. So they're typically early technology adopters. In addition to that, we're seeing big moves as the network connects everything in agencies like Department of Commerce, which have gone to standardize multi-vendor agreements for their networks to ensure that they are getting competition and they're leveraging open standards.
You mentioned that there's misperceptions. What else would you advise IT staffs to think about that maybe they are, maybe a little not quite up to the curve, if you will, of what's capable with this sort of new IP approach?
I think it all begins with more market research. I think we've all become somewhat complacent with technology as we've become and grown more familiar with it, that we know everything is out there. I was just recently involved in an ACT-IAC event that actually happened to be hosted at our facility, our executive briefing facility at our headquarters in San Jose, California. And this was around the National Innovation Initiative that ACT-IAC is sponsoring to bring government and early stage innovative companies and their technology together to share with governments more about what's going on in the community. So I think first and foremost, it has to begin with more market research. That is, government agencies and entities have to find better ways of being more inclusive earlier in the process, and then defining requirements in terms of broad capabilities linked to standards and mission outcomes.
That's great. Well, appreciate you stopping by and
Sure.
sharing some of that. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Wayne.
Yeah. I'm Wyatt Cash with FedScoop, and for more of our coverage and interviews, tune in to fedscoop.com. Thanks for being with us.